Hello everyone! Today is a very special video because we are covering my favorite part of aerospace warfare in Halo, the Prowlers. I actually just wrote an entire thing for you guys that you will find on AO3 soon enough. Yeah, that's a thing. Yeah, okay, what was I saying? Right, Prowlers. This is a remake of an old video, by the way, updated lore, that jazz. That said, Prowlers, they are not as famous as the Pillar of Autumn. They aren't big like the Infinity, and they do not sit above worlds waiting for a target like an orbital defense platform. Prowlers are different. Prowlers are special. But they are also unseen, and yet they see all. Prowlers are unheard, but they hear all. Prowlers are the killers in the night, the stuff of nightmares. These ships, crewed only by the best, can bring about the doom of even the most powerful of fleets. They can turn an easy conquest into a brutal crawl laced with nuclear mines, timed MAC-fire, coordinated sorties, and even Spartan boarding parties. Prowlers are some of the most important assets in the UNSC, or rather, the Office of Naval Intelligence. Without them, Spartans would be unable to carry out vital operations. Without them, humanity would have fallen. So, today, we are going to finally take a moment to give the Prowlers and the Prowler Corps the love they both deserve. By the way, quick little thing. I don't normally do this, but look, I'm just gonna, okay, you know what, times are tough right now, alright? Been getting sick plenty, college keeps me busy, and money's tight, gotta help pay the bills, so if you would consider checking out my Patreon or YouTube memberships, that'll be nice. There's benefits there, you guys get stuff early, among other things, making some emotes, emojis, artwork, blah blah blah, but hey, no pressure, I'm just happy you're here watching, you know, my stuff. Let's get into it. Prowlers are a form of ships within the UNSC Navy specialized entirely for stealth. All of them are made by the Watershed Division. They are used for intelligence gathering, infiltration, exfiltration, mine laying, and more. However, Prowlers have a rather unique status within the Navy. The reason? Well, they aren't really operated by the Navy at all. The Office of Naval Intelligence has sole authority over the Prowlers, and as such, they are their own unique division. The Prowler Corps. Now, during operations, a Prowler may fall under the command of an officer at the head of a naval battle group to prevent any confusion. But at the end of the day, what ONI says to do with any Prowler, well, that's the law. Though there is some flexibility to this operational gray area, as it is standard procedure for any UNSC fleet or battle group to be shadowed by at least one Prowler. But let's talk about the Prowler Corps for a moment. We actually do not know much about the Prowler Corps. The Office of Naval Intelligence, it keeps most things under wraps, and it is deliberately written to be one of those things that's left to the imagination. However, we do know that all permanent crew within a Prowler are a part of this division, and that Valaknima was an operational center for the Prowler Corps early in the Covenant War. Also, for those of you wondering why I distinguish ONI from the Navy, even though ONI is supposed to fall under the Navy, it's simply that, well, it's actually the opposite. The Navy is actually what falls under ONI. Everything falls under ONI, really. In reality, ONI is the organization acting as humanity's shadow government. And the Prowler Corps is one of its major tools. Now, jumping into speculative territory for a moment, we know that retirement age from the Prowler Corps is notably younger than the rest of the Navy. Why is this? Well, being part of a Prowler's crew is arguably the most intense and complex role an individual can have in the Navy. There's no room for fatigue or age, which can bring up complications. All of the Prowler crews are very talented and specialized in what they do. They are the closest to perfect efficiency anyone can get to without full-on automation. They have to be. Otherwise, frankly, they wouldn't survive. Even though Prowlers are designed to be virtually undetectable, the crews have to be very careful to maintain that veil of secrecy. The smallest error could expose the Prowler for even just a second, and that would be the end of them. Prowlers also operate for very long periods of time. In Ghosts of Onyx, a single crew had seen non-stop action for 18 months with no downtime, and they had seen some of the worst facets of the war. So the closest they had to a break was when they were receiving maintenance or getting a refit. So between the incredibly high stress environment of a Prowler, the lack of rest, the isolation, well, witnessing thousands of people die in naval engagements, it's a taxing job. Granted, going into personal speculation for a moment, I've always noticed, or imagined rather, that this is a result of wartime constraints on available personnel. Take a look at my video defending UNSC crew sizes for reference. Another note about the Prowler Corps. Flight commanders approve all crew replacements, or at least they did until the insurrectionists exploited this. Long story. Regardless, the crews of the Prowler Corps have to be the most mentally resilient, most courageous, most dedicated men, women, etc. of the UNSC. They just have to be. The first Prowlers entered service with the Razor class in 2499. At a length of 160 meters with a mass of around 30,000 metric tons, this is a small ship, but don't let its size fool you. The Razor can hold its own in the right circumstances. In fact, the Razors are very, very good for ambushes. For that matter, Razor-class Prowlers participated in some of ONI's most important operations during the Covenant War. Razors are also capable of operating without resupply for up to 8 months, meaning they were and are the go-to for extended observation. Its armament consists of 2 M870 Rampart Point Defense Guns, 12 M28 Shrieker missiles, 8 M4510 Argent 5 missiles, and 3 Fury tactical nuclear devices. That said, this can change. As an example, some Razors can mount 30 and 50mm guns, towards the front and on their underbelly. The Razor also makes use of a stealth ablative coating, which makes it virtually undetectable to radar or other sensors. In fact, it was noted by a member of the Covenant's Silent Shadow that Razors are even better at remaining undetected than, well, the Covy's intrusion corvettes. As of 2558, any Razors remaining in service will have received texture buffers, which is the UNSC's own way of giving its Prowlers active camo. In essence, these buffers can be equated to a photoreactive skin that is integrated into the aforementioned ablative coating. It's programmable optical camo, essentially. That said, if the surface behind the Prowler is changing, say an explosive or explosion, or it's moving fast, then the buffers will show their limits. Essentially, the surrounding space will appear distorted. You can see this effect in-game whenever, say, a Sangheili uses active camo. In the case of Discovery, a Razor's crew can destroy the ship with a 1 megaton Fury nuclear device should escape not be on the table. In fact, the nuke is programmed to detonate on its own, provided a catastrophic event occurs that kills or incapacitates the crew. The Razor's own interior features come with a drop bay fitted with data feeds. This bay can hold and deploy 40 or so orbital drop shock troopers, complete with vacuum-rated armor and thruster packs. The entire bay can be cleared in about 4 seconds if done effectively, allowing the platoon to immediately cover a 30-kilometer area of space. An M12 Warthog can also be squeezed in, though I imagine the spacing would not be comfortable for the Helljumpers. Just above the bay is a small hangar that carries 1 or 2 Pelican dropships. The rest of the Razor is also able to accommodate a crew of 22. The Razor served during the war and continues to be used in the post-war era. Moving on to my personal favorite, the Point Blank class Prowler, also known as a stealth cruiser. It's a versatile line of ships that act as motherships for other Prowlers. Long-term and long-range strategic reconnaissance operations are their thing, and they will serve as command ships on the front. One notable vessel was the Vanishing Point, which led Task Force Yama during the earliest military campaigns against the Covenant. The point-blank entered service in 2510 at a length of 485 meters and a mass of 1.1 million metric tons. This is a Prowler you don't want to mess with. It has an armament consisting of 120 F9B9 magnetic accelerator cannon, 4 M66 Sentry autocannon turrets, 80 M42 Archer missile pods, Christ, the maintenance must be annoying given the size of the ship, 20 M910 Rampart Point defense guns, and 5 Shiva nuclear delivery systems. While the point-blank size is actually a downside due to its radar cross-section being considerably larger than other Prowler lines, it makes use of other technologies to ensure it is hidden. A notable feature within the point-blank is its baffler tech, which is so good at keeping the ship hidden, well, when their engines run at 30% or below, the point-blank becomes indistinguishable from the vacuum of space. Furthermore, any point-blanks still in service have been upgraded with texture buffers. That's not to say they are completely invisible though, as demonstrated by the Banished being able to spot the UNSC hidden point based on its comm chatter. Remember, you're only hidden until you start making too much noise. And of course, these ladies have some impressive tools when it comes to electronic warfare. One such piece of tech is its capacity to jam or block all outbound communications from a targeted area regardless of the volume of noise. The only way to counter this is to use specialized tech meant for these kinds of things, such as delayed transmission modules. Point-blanks have conference rooms that act as Faraday cages, allowing meetings to be conducted in absolute secrecy. They also have large preparation holdings for ODSTs or Spartans to train in various combat scenarios. The artificial gravity can be disabled for zero-G training as well. Of course, there is a bay where funeral services are conducted, and there is a hangar from which 24 S-14 baselards can be launched from. Notably, the mentioned hidden point was able to carry 10 Condors, which Chunky bay. Chunky bay. Yeah. Next up, the Sahara-class heavy Prowler was introduced at the start of the Covenant War. While they only have a length of 281 meters and weigh 71,000 metric tons, these impressive ships have the capacity to obliterate entire fleets. The armament, by the way, is more eye-catching than most realize. It isn't bristling with archers, nor does it have a magnetic accelerator cannon. That said, it does have 2 XeV9 Matos non-linear pulse cannons, 1 M947 Shiva nuclear delivery system, 8 M441 Hornet nuclear mine dispersal racks. If its capabilities are exploited properly, the Sahara can and will be a force of death and destruction, as shown by the UNSC Dusk during its brief trip to Onyx. This is something we will elaborate more on later. One thing to note, however, since we are on the topic of the M441 Hornet mine. Stealthy as the Prowlers are, having Hornet mines on board puts them at risk of detection upon emergence from slip. Essentially, a noticeable release of Cherenkov radiation already significantly increases the risk of detection by the enemy. To cap it off, the Sahara has a stealth ablative coating and texture buffers. Every Prowler has this, so I'm not going to be mentioning these again. Moving on, the Eclipse class Prowler is not really well known or talked about in Halo lore. We hear about them, but they're not really shown off otherwise. In fact, we have no imagery, no stats. They don't even appear in the 2022 Halo Encyclopedia. However, I do intend to speculate, so bear with me while we enter the theory zone. I believe the Eclipse class is a small multi-purpose Prowler somewhere around the size of the Razor, perhaps a little smaller. In Operation Silent Storm, Task Force Yama was composed of 3 Prowler squadrons. The squadrons consisted of Razor and Eclipse class Prowlers, with each squadron being headed by a Sahara class. Directing the entire force was a single point blank. Now, Silent Storm was an important operation that required stealth, and more stealth. In short, the Covenant advance through the outer colonies needed to be checked. So, Silent Storm called for the disruption of supply lines deep behind enemy lines. And when I say deep, I mean deep. Theoretically, such a major disruption would slow hostile incursions long enough to allow the UNSC to self-organize its way out of the death spiral it was dealing with at the time. Task Force Yama would have to carry Spartans and orbital drop shock troopers, and enable them to board as many Covenant vessels as possible to plant nuclear devices. Optimistically, Covenant staging areas would be hit at the perfect moment. These Prowlers would have to operate without supply or communication with the wider UNSC, meaning that, like the Razor, the Eclipse would have to support its crew and any additional occupants for months at a time. Though, I imagine the Point Blank and Saharas could carry additional supplies to distribute around the force. So, now we have to ask, what would the Eclipse-class Prowlers do during the operation? More recently, in Operation Wolf, we did see an Eclipse-class Prowler play an important role. The UNSC Bucephalus served as the mothership for the Special Delivery, an OWL dropship utilized by Blue Team for insertion onto what remained of Reach. It conducted a threat sweep where it was able to detect a conflict in radio chatter, but its instruments weren't sensitive enough to determine anything with clarity. Granted, it was operating in the middle of an electronic dead zone being cast by Anlace frigates configured for electronic warfare, so maybe that had an impact on things. Maybe, that's just a possible theory. So, with that in mind, we have an idea. If the Razor is an ambush predator, the Point Blank is a showrunner, the Sahara is a mine layer and assistant coordinator, then you can argue that the Eclipse kind of fulfills a mixture of things. It provides intelligence, it hosts dropships, so infill, exfil, force deployment, that whole jazz, and maybe it has its own specialized electronic warfare role. Maybe, I don't know, just throwing it out there. Just speculation. The Winter-class Prowler is the most recent line to enter service, with the first becoming active in 2549, 4 years before the end of the Covenant War. Winter-class Prowlers are designed with stealth and speed in mind, with their main function being reconnaissance. They are small, being only 84 meters in length. Typically, a Winter-class Prowler will observe and spy on insurrectionists and Covenant splinter groups. We see one being used by Blue Team in Halo 5, after they escaped the Argent Moon, and okay, you know what? Okay, no. I told myself I wasn't gonna bitch about it this time, but damn it, I'm gonna do it again. Okay, so Halo 5 has a lot of issues, right? But none of them baffle me more than Blue Team's treatment of that Prowler. I know this is like a really stupid, dumb thing to focus on, but here we go. Cortana? Okay, it bugs me that she effectively became Space Dictator, but if you watched my How a Galaxy Fell video, you'll know that I am of the view that Cortana's turn was not an unexpected surprise. Osiris? Yeah, sucks that you need to read multiple books, comics, and watch a movie to, really appreciate the characters, but they were not unbearable, they were just boring. You could still figure out what was happening. But oh my fucking god. Blue Team was done dirty in this. They were so stupid, and I mean stupid throughout this game. I mean, the Chief has a vision, and his team just goes along with it. Yes, they're all super close and would follow John 117 anywhere, but the Chief had just gotten smacked upside the head by a hunter before plummeting at least a few stories. There's no way that Fred, Linda, and Kelly are gonna look at the Chief and just take his word at face value that he had received a vision from his dead AI companion. No, they're going to logically assume that John is fucking concussed, put Fred in front, and assess him as they go. As you're supposed to do when your CO's ability to think rationally may have been compromised. And then they go in search of Cortana and a Prowler. Hey, remember Prowlers are made with technology that's like super classified, and they are only allowed to be used by the Office of Naval Intelligence? It isn't unreasonable for a super talented team like Blue Team to make use of one. That's not the issue. The problem is what they did with it. Here's this Prowler, this super advanced, sexy piece of hardware, and what the fuck do they do with it? They park it smack dab in the middle of an anti-UNSC, anti-UEG, anti-Spartan, independent outer colonies mining installation and just leave it there. They don't even wipe the fucking records. Fireteam Osiris just shows up right after and accesses everything. I just want to point out that with time, those insurrectionist sympathizing colonists are gonna sell that thing to someone that does not like the UNSC, and then the Argent Moon, its operations, the technology behind the Prowler, and the treasure trove of astronavigational data leading to various colonies and UNSC installations would fall into the hands of the enemy. It's stupid. It's fucking stupid. I know that this is not constructive criticism. This is not healthy criticism, okay? This is literally just me being a whiny little shit. But I don't care what you say. It is stupid and uncharacteristic of Blue Team, the best team of Spartans at the UNSC disposal, to leave this Prowler here. Just like, remember when Operation Silent Storm got like fucking derailed because one Prowler went down and its self-destruct didn't pop off, so John 117 him fucking self had to personally see to it that the Prowler went boom? Just reminder, Razor crews are literally told, hey, so if your ship is about to go down and you can't escape, yourself. This ship is literally rigged to explode. Why would Blue Team just set it down in the open in the middle of a very fucking occupied station? This is just one example of Halo 5's, not character assassination, but rather character removal of Blue Team. Outside of a few quips and gestures between characters here and there, Blue Team's sole purpose in that game is just make plot move. There's a reason they're barely in the game to begin with. I know this is a dumb thing to harp on because the Halo games have always been riddled with like stupid detail inconsistency, like the Covenant sneaking a fat-ass super carrier past the UNSC Navy in Halo Reach. This one just like bugs me because it is the prime example of the issue with Halo 5's handling of Blue Team and really just characters as a whole, and I'm fitting it in here because it's Prowler related. Anyways, back to it. And okay, and yes, I know Empty Throne has a certain someone using a Winter class, but that was provided to him by ONI itself. It's not like it was stolen or anything like that. Okay, right, now we're actually getting back to it. The Winter class has an abundance of experimental technologies within it, which includes 3 new fusion drives. Some are fitted with subspace drives that are so advanced, only technicians from the Office of Naval Intelligence are allowed to handle them. They can travel across the Orion Arm faster than most human-made vessels. They also have an experimental hyperscanner system. The Winter class can also carry up to 20 additional passengers. It then proceeds to send teams on high-risk missions. The Winter class Prowler also has a modest armament. 2 M8545 ASWAC 40mm machine-linked autocannons, 3 CBU R68 Moray systems, and 3 M995 backstop point defense lasers. There are also unidentified types of Prowlers and stealth ships. One was designed and under construction on the Argent Moon before the station was lost. There is another unidentified Prowler class which we have seen used by multiple parties. It is somewhat reminiscent of the Sahara, but we know for a fact it is smaller. It does seem to vaguely match what we think of, what we kind of picture the Eclipse to be. So maybe it's actually the Eclipse. Next up, we have an unidentified heavy Prowler class, the UNSC Tarocado? I don't know, please give me the proper pronunciations in the comments, please. It carries broadswords, so chunky boy. Don't think it is as big as a Point Blank, but still noteworthy. Now, this new class was introduced in the new Halo book, Empty Throne. We don't know anything about it other than it's an experimental Prowler, the UNSC Acadian. It is clearly able to provide real-time intelligence, however, that's really like about all we know it can do. The final unidentified class was seen in the comic book Halo Wars Genesis. It is not dissimilar to the flying wing style of the longsword, but we really just do not know. We know the name of this ship, the Last Gleaming, which transports people, but otherwise. We also have another little talked about class of ship known as sub-prowlers. They are stealthy small craft usually employed by larger prowlers. They infiltrate and exfiltrate cargo, assets, and teams from planetary surfaces. They have low observability technologies built into their airframes, and they have a host of countermeasures and decoys that would allow them to look like a common shuttle on a network. The most famous sub-prowlers are known as the Black Cat class vessels. They are small transports that bring teams in and out of high-threat environments. The Chiroptera is another example of a sub-prowler. They used to be the pinnacle of stealth ship architecture in the 2400s. Its designs and technologies set the foundations for the modern prowlers of today. While it is not a sub-prowler, an honorable mention does go to the D-102 OWL insertion craft. It does not have the various and expensive technology suites available to ONI sub-prowlers, but it is still designed with stealth in mind. Think of the Special Delivery, which you can see in Shadows of Reach. Owls were originally designed as a potential successor to the Pelican, but limited resources meant the Owl never entered production until the 2550s. Even now, it will not replace the Pelican. It has a pilot, co-pilot, and at least one technician in the back. The Owl can carry about 19 to 20 passengers and is well armed for a dropship. It has one M370 autocannon, two Argent 5 missile deployment systems, and two Anvil 2 missile pods. A couple other honorable mentions. The U-81 Condor. Sometimes this one is classed as a sub-prowler just because it is meant to be more covert, but it doesn't have the characteristics, namely the stealth tech of true sub-prowlers. Honestly, I could argue that the Owl is more of a candidate, but lore is lore. Next, the C-718 Longsword variant. It is not a sub-prowler, but it does incorporate stealth technology. Kind of reminds me of the F-117, to be honest. What makes a prowler so deadly is not its weaponry. It cannot win in a slugfest like the Infinity. Instead, a prowler's power comes from one thing: information. A prowler sees all and knows all. A competent commander will be able to make life hell for the enemy. So let's look at an example of this, shall we? I've mentioned it a couple times this video. Let's get into some more detail. A Sahara-class prowler known as the UNSC Dusk arrived over Onyx via slipspace after tailing a Singhili warship. With limited time, the Dusk was able to provide intelligence on a small group of hostile destroyers which were intercepted by UNSC Battlegroup Omicron. Omicron consisted of 9 ships, one of which was the UNSC Stalingrad, a carrier. The battle group destroyed all but one of the destroyers which fled. Omicron continued to pursue the destroyer, only to encounter a reinforcing fleet of 20 Singhili warships. A number of hostile vessels were knocked out, but the UNSC was forced to withdraw with only 4 remaining ships. The Singhili encountered problems of their own. Onyx's own force of Sentinels became hostile, whittling their fleet down to 16. Still, however, the odds were grim for the UNSC. 4 battered UNSC warships and an idling prowler against 16 Covenant-made warships were bad odds, even if the enemy was also in nasty shape. With that in mind, Battlegroup Omicron regrouped near Onyx's moon and put the UNSC Dusk to work. The Dusk quietly meandered into no man's land, deploying 14 Hornet mines, each of which was a 30 megaton nuke with vacuum-enhanced loads. From there, the Dusk moved back to observe the battle and deliver consistent updates. With the trap set, Omicron resumed the battle through an opening volley at extreme ranges. While it did little against the Singhili fleet, it accomplished its goal. The alien vessels advanced towards the remaining UNSC ships and crossed right into the Dusk's minefield. The Dusk's crew activated the mines and a dozen targets were destroyed instantly. 4 ships emerged, battered and half destroyed, and another 2 were struck down by the UNSC. Battlegroup Omicron would have finished off the remaining 2 ships, however, an additional fleet of 32 warships arrived, destroying the UNSC battlegroup. While it was a loss for Omicron, it only lost because of the lopsided fight that occurred after the initial battle was pretty much over. Had the Singhili not reinforced their fleet, Battlegroup Omicron would have won. A single prowler turned what would have been a completely hopeless fight into a victory that was cut short by hostile reinforcements. In total, the Dusk alone scored a dozen kills. Couple that with Omicron's count, and at least 20 alien warships were destroyed by just 10 UNSC ships. By the way, the Dusk did survive that battle. It remained undetected the entire time, and even went on to survive into the post-war era. But now, we're done. This has been fun. I've been your very shitty host. Please consider supporting me. But, I'm just happy you're here. I'm just happy someone's watching my shit. My very shitty content. My dog shit content. I love making it. Alright, see you in the cosmos, friends.